In one of his UFO meetings, Frank related how myths and legends of cultures all over the world describe seeing ET-like beings. Here's how John described the meeting. Jim, a man in the group, asked Frank, "How long have the ETs been coming to Earth?" John expected Frank to say maybe tens of thousands of years. Instead, he surprised him by saying, "Oh, about 4.5 billion years." "What?" Jim responded in disbelief. "That's the age of the Earth. Why would they have come here? There was no life on Earth then." Frank replied, "That's the point. When the Earth was able to support life, they brought life here. They're gardeners. Just like gardeners on Earth except on a cosmic scale. They're known as the gardener race because they travel around the universe looking for planets that have evolved enough to support life. When they find one, they plant the seeds of life and let them grow." John was astonished, and a dozen questions raced through his mind. Frank explained that the gardener race is one of the most ancient and advanced of all the ET races, billions of years old, far older than the Nordics and Greys. Frank said, "Because they are so advanced, it's difficult for humans to relate to them. Humans may plan for years at a time, or decades at most, but the gardeners make plans millions and billions of years in advance. They don't have bodies either, at least not the way we think of bodies." He continued, "I've never seen any gardeners myself, but the Nordics tell me that billions of years ago the gardeners were more like us, but they've evolved far beyond that now. They're wispier and more ethereal." Fran, an older woman in the group, complained, "I'm having enough trouble using this human body to do gardening. How do they do it with wispy bodies?" Everyone laughed. Frank smiled and said, "Mentally, by thought alone. All of you know that the Nordics and Greys materialize things out of thin air using their technology. The next step higher is to do it by thought, and that's the way the gardeners do it. They don't need technology, or arms for that matter. They simply imagine something, they think it, and it happens. They don't need ships to get around either, although they have wispy ships, too. They can travel in their wispy ships at far faster than the speed of light. Or they can simply teleport across the universe. To human beings, they appear to be benevolent gods, and I guess, in a sense they are." Frank continued, "When the conditions on a planet are right, they introduce DNA and the other necessary raw materials for getting life started. It's kind of like leaving blueprints for self-assembly of life forms. You've heard the old saying that a gardener doesn't plant a seed and dig it up every day to see how it's growing." Frank explained that it's the same with the gardeners. After they plant the seeds of life on some planet, they come back periodically to check on things, say every 100 million years. But mostly they don't interfere. They just let evolution run its course. From college biology classes, John knew that scientists think life arose from the accidental combination of chemicals in the primordial soup. He brought this up to Frank. "Well, to put it simply, they're wrong," Frank said. "A few intuitive scientists believe in what's called panspermia. It's the idea that life hitchhiked to Earth on comets and asteroids. If you accept that comets can do that, it's not much of a jump to accept that ET civilizations also can do it. And it's not just the gardeners. When a planet has evolved enough to be habitable, some race of ETs will likely show up to colonize it. Most people think humans evolved from apes, but that's not true. The ancestors of humans actually came to Earth from the stars. As a matter of fact, that's also where apes came from, the stars." Fred, who was often skeptical, said, "Okay, let me play devil's advocate. So, we have two ideas. The first one, life on Earth was a slow happy accident. Second one, the gardeners did it. Is there any evidence one way or the other?" "2 words, Cambrian explosion," Frank responded. "Look it up. That's just one of the times that the gardeners seeded the Earth with life." Later, John did an online search and found that about 540 million years ago, there was life in the world's oceans, but most of it was microscopically small. The largest plants and animals were only about the size of a fingernail. Then suddenly everything changed. Scientists call it the Cambrian explosion because the ocean suddenly exploded with a weird array of bizarre creatures that were up to 3 to 6 feet long, 1 to 2 meters. There were big spiky worms like centipedes, huge scorpion-like creatures, and 6-foot-long ancestors of crabs and spiders, along with a bewildering array of other plants and animals. All the main groups of animals that we know today suddenly appeared. The problem is that for some of them, there were no predecessors. How did they show up so suddenly? How did they evolve? Evolutionary scientists say that so many varieties of plants and animals cannot have appeared over such a short interval through evolution alone. The explosion was so abrupt that it bewildered Charles Darwin, the father of evolution. The Cambrian explosion simply did not fit his theory of evolution slowly at work. When John continued the discussion later, Frank said, Darwin couldn't explain the Cambrian explosion, because he didn't know about the gardeners. Even so, Darwin was partially correct. Darwinian evolution took over after the gardeners left. Evolution is a fundamental law of the universe, but it is slow and plodding, making gradual changes over long periods. The real story is that every once in a while, evolution is punctuated by some highly unusual event that suddenly pushes life forward in a great leap. Whether it's the gardeners, other ETs, comets, asteroids, or supervolcanoes, all of them can suddenly jumpstart life in a new direction. Frank continued, but the gardeners don't just plant seeds, they protect the garden. Like an earth gardener protecting her garden from an aphid attack, the gardener race has protected Earth from all kinds of attacks. They have deflected asteroids and comets, and they have kept bad alien races from taking over the planet. And that's not all. At the end of a season, a human gardener will plow up her garden to prepare for the next season's crops. The gardener race does that too. Frank looked at John and asked, "You know about the dinosaurs, right?" "Well, the gardeners plowed the garden. Their season was over." John knew the story well. As a kid, he had been fascinated with dinosaurs and how a 10-mile-wide asteroid had smashed into Mexico. The violent impact tossed millions of tons of dust, debris and soot into the atmosphere and started fires across most of the planet. Almost all species of dinosaurs went extinct. Surprised to hear a new twist to an old story, John responded, "You mean the ETs purposely sent an asteroid to kill the dinosaurs?" Frank replied, "Well, maybe not exactly on purpose. It could be that it was already heading towards Earth, and they looked the other way. They could have stopped it, but didn't. The ETs told me that they and the gardeners have stopped asteroids and comets from hitting Earth in the past. Their technological abilities are so great that they can easily vaporize a comet. Or bump it into a different path that misses Earth. Or push an asteroid to hit Earth if it's time to plow up the garden." John asked whether the ETs have had a hand in every global catastrophe throughout Earth's long history. Frank responded, "Of course, not all of them. But a lot of them, in one way or another. They either caused them or looked the other way and let them happen. Humans mistakenly think that global disasters are random and accidental, that we're locked inside some cruel random cosmic shooting gallery with no protection, but that's simply not true. Nothing of major consequence for Earth ever happens by accident. One way or another, the ETs were involved and almost always will be involved in the future. It's nice to know that they are looking out for us, kind of like guardian angels. Eventually, we'll have the technology and abilities to do it ourselves." Other contactees, including Orfeo Angelucci, recounted stories supporting the idea that ETs can affect the orbits of dangerous comets and asteroids. In a curiously appropriate coincidence, Orfeo's surname, Angelucci, roughly translates from Italian as messenger of the angels. He was indeed a messenger of the ETs. Angelucci wrote that he was often taken aboard ET ships and traveled to other planets. On one trip, Angelucci described how an ET touched a crystal-like control panel that caused the hologram-like 3D projection to appear on the entire wall. Fascinated, Angelucci watched as a glowing comet with a long tail approached a dark planet surrounded by a gray mist. Intuitively, he understood that he saw an evil world filled with heavy negativity and darkness. He felt that the negative planet was irresistibly attracting the fiery comet. The two collided in a massive explosion that demolished the planet. One of the ETs turned to him and said, "It is an immutable law of the cosmos that too great a preponderance of evil inevitably results in self-destruction. After that there is a new beginning." Immediately, the ET showed him another 3D simulation. In this one, a different planet was not as dark as the first. Angelucci wrote, "Again, I saw a fatalistic fiery red dot approaching, and it was evident that this world too was doomed. But then I held my breath as I beheld two tiny dots coming forth from that world apparently to intercept the fiery comet. Intuitively, I realized that the dots were remotely controlled by intelligent beings upon the planet who were concentrating the magnetic impulses of the dots upon the comet. Suddenly the comet exploded, leaving the world unscathed. I breathed a sigh of relief. Once more, the scene shifted and focused upon a third world. Obviously, this was an in-between world, neither as dark and hopeless as the first nor yet as light and inspired as the second. To the left of this planet appeared another smaller body. I recognized it as our moon and the planet as Earth. Suddenly, terrifyingly, to the right of the planet Earth, appeared the red, fiery dot of cosmic doom. Rapidly it increased in size, leaving behind it a fiery tail of flame. It was evident that the comet was being drawn irresistibly toward Earth. Then the projection suddenly stopped. Anxiously, Angelucci turned to the ETs and asked, "But what happens to Earth?" One of the ETs told him that the people of Earth have a choice. We can continue our destructive ways and be destroyed by the comet. Or we can change and move toward a world of love, light, and unity. Will the ETs intervene if a giant comet is heading toward Earth? Or will they let humans go the way of the dinosaurs? Time will tell.